Hi, and welcome, Allison and Hunter. Glad to see you here. And I'm sure we'll have some others who will be joining us. And we'll get started. We're going to be starting about 7 minutes or so early. However, that's okay. People can catch it on the front end. I see Carmen is here as well, Emily, Allison, and Hunter. Glad to see you here. This is, of course, week number 6. And if you would, first of all, I want to mute everybody and make sure that your all of your devices are muted so that we don't have any echo or anything of that nature. And we're going to take a look here for just a moment. This is week 6. You have a couple of quizzes that are due this week. And as I said earlier, you're good if you came in a little bit. We're starting a little bit early. I anticipate we'll go till 7, maybe 7:15, maybe 7:30 at the very, very latest. As you know, what I like to do with this is to chunk it. So I'll take a part of it tonight and then probably a part of it tomorrow or Saturday. So that keeps the strain off. And those of you who come physically, I appreciate it very much. And I just think that, when we get to a certain point past 7, it starts to deteriorate pretty quickly. Everybody's had a long day at that point, especially those of you who've been at practice. We are at week number 6, and this is the 5th of October. Now, we're about to start on a new piece or part of the course, and that is we're going to start to work now on databases. And so you should have your textbook with you, and if you do, we're really starting at Chapter 4, page 133, which is an introduction to database software, okay? And I would encourage you to read those pages 133 through 148, and they talk about Microsoft Access and databases and those types of products. So I'm going to go over here into Files, and I want to grab a database file for us, but before I do that, I want to give you all kind of the theoretical part of this. Now, what I found is over the years as I've taught this course to students, everybody has a good feeling about Excel. And then when we move into the last part, as you recall our last case, we were working with the pivot table. And we were able to take variables and pop them in and look at them and rearrange them and all that business. Well, that was kind of a prelude to where we are now. And if you're, and of course, as you can see, I have that file over there from the, which shows the analytical cube. And let me talk for just a few minutes about what that means. If you look at that JPEG or that picture, you're going to see some broad kinds of areas up here: product, retailer, date, and then some measures down here, how much revenue was generated in that total in 2005 for a particular type of product at a particular shop. So when we talk about the analytical cube, we talk about a database, we really talk about starting to look at our operation from a multidimensional level. And what you see when you look and you see those questions, those are really what we would call queries. And we use databases to generate queries. And that is to ask questions, to generate data that allows us to ask questions about our operation, about what's going on. And typically what you'll see is what you see here is something by product or maybe service, whatever is offered, and then whatever outlets it's offered through, and then you'll start to see date, in other words, time data, and then you'll get into what we call facts or measures, and those are how much did we sell last week, how much did we sell today, etc. And we're going to find as we start to work with databases that when we develop a database, it really consists of 4 things. It consists of tables where we store data. It consists of what we call queries. Those are ways for us to go in and pull data out of a table, and it consists of forms. Those are ways we input data into a table, and then it has at the very least has a thing called a report function that will generate us some output. Now, I'm going to close this file off for just a second, and I want to go over and show you one of those files. And this is access number 1, and it's published. And it's, if you're over in the files area, I want you to take a look at it for just a second, because we're going to do a little work with it tonight. But it will be instructive for us to play with. Now, as I've said before, a lot of you have had a lot of experience with spreadsheets, maybe not so much with databases. And I can tell you without any question, if you are comfortable working with databases and spreadsheets, when you go out to work, you're going to be a mile ahead of everybody else, because that most business programs, they just give it a very, very slight amount of attention, although we understand that a database, okay, is the foundation for this thing that we call business intelligence. And business intelligence is really this. It revolves around our key performance indicators. And there's what is it we do, or our business proposition, what is it we do that gets us paid, okay, and how that contributes to company goals, and how that and how they in turn contribute to the company's strategy and then its mission. But we have to have that data, and the foundation of it is tables. Now I'm going to enable the content here, okay, and when we look at a database, it's not a bad idea just to kind of navigate with it a little bit when we work with Access. And you're going to notice as you look up here, it looks a whole lot like Excel, and that's the reason. And there's a reason for that. The people at Microsoft Office offer a productivity suite. They want us to feel comfortable working in any one of them, and Access and Excel have a whole lot in common in terms of their look and their feel. Now, over on the far left, okay, is the shutter, okay, and we can maneuver that thing around. We can maneuver it over or as far as we want. It also shows us, what we have in terms of objects. Now, you said, what do you mean? What's an object? An object is one of two things. It is either an iconic representation of a set of commands to be executed, like up here, okay, or filter, or it's an iconic representation of some type of result set or data set that we've maybe run a query and gotten some data, and you'll see that down here. It also represents a form. So these are pictures, and so when I say it's iconic, what that means is underneath each of these is programming. Access has millions of lines of code underwritten, and Microsoft probably employs about 5,000 people working full-time a year to do that, make this look so easy. Okay, what we're going to find though is that the whole idea of an analytical cube, the whole idea of using a database, the whole idea of talking about business intelligence gives us a tremendous advantage out there when we go out to work, because almost everything is based upon or drawn upon a database. Now, let's look at these objects for just a second, and you'll see what I'm talking about. Here we have some tables, okay, and this is from a Northampton case number 1, which is the first case. And take your cursor, and you'll see, right-click it, and you'll see we've got. We can open the thing. We've got a design view. We can import. We can export. Let's just go to the open view, and that we would call the data sheet view. And what you're seeing right there is a very typical table with a set of records. Each of these are a record. Now, sometimes you'll have people, old school folks will call them tuples, but a record is really nothing more than a whole series of dimensions or attributes or variables connected together to create one complete and unique record. And you can see right here, for example, here's the company ID, okay? Then you see the company, the address, the city, the state, the zip, etc. Now, what's really interesting to me, and I think many of you, those of you who are athletes, ought to find it interesting. And I'm certain if you watch much sports, you see the heavy duty use of analytics, especially in baseball. I'm a big baseball fan, but football does the same thing. Tremendous amount of statistical data. Well, you can't get that data out there unless you have a database. And when I watch baseball games and listen to them through the summer, it never ceases to amaze me that somebody comes up to the plate to bat and they begin to talk about how that person will be pitched to, or are they going to put a certain type of defense out there, a shift, and all that stuff. Behind that, every major team has an analytics person who's run all of that data, so they know all kinds of situational data, and that's why when you're watching a broadcast, Joe Smith walks to the bat. He's batted 5 times against Billy Bob, who's pitching, but they say, okay, he's got 2 hits off of him, and they begin to talk about the analysis, or they talk about strikeout. And if you look, if you watch, of course, you see, like in baseball, you'll see the strike zone, all that kinds of stuff. All those things are made possible by the analytics, and then the movie Moneyball is a good example of that. But we can't do those things unless we have a way to gather, to store, and then to access, that is to get data. So we got a table here. Now underneath the hood of this table, okay, and we'll go down here to the design view, is the design, or the way we've organized each field, okay? The field are the variables, what we call the dimensions that we're interested in. And here we have a company ID, okay? And this is a way that we make every single record unique. The next thing we have is the name of the company. Then we have its address, its city, its state, and zip. And this is a last name. These are contacts, first name, a department, and last time that they ordered. And you'll notice as we scroll through, they use different types of data. And you'll see this thing down here called field properties. Now, when you leave this course, you're not going to be a database expert. You don't need to be. Here's what you need to do is, number one, you need to understand that the database should contain the type of information that you need to make decisions. And number two, that you'll be able to have an intelligent conversation with the people in IT, whether they're with your company or you farm it out to somebody and they take care of it. So all information technology is decision-centric. And what we mean is it's designed to get you and I the ability to make a decision. Now, I'm going to take this down for just a second and try to give us a little bit more of a generality in terms of what I mean. So I'm going to open up a new tab here, and I'm going to go out and look for business dashboards. Okay, because it's important that you see. And here's a business dashboard, and just like a plane, a car, a train, any kind of object, anything that's moving through time and space, companies have a dashboard. Okay, and there are all kinds of company dashboards, and I just want to show you for a second now. And this is one of the reasons that I've included this book, The Few Text, about Show Me the Numbers, so that you could start to understand why. And I think if you look back there in some of the earlier posts and in those resources, when we talk about the visualization of data and its presentation. Here's the one, okay? And this has got number of shares, expenses incurred, profit this month versus last month. You can see, if you start to take a look at that, you'll start to see pieces of that analytical cube I talked about. We've got data over time, we've got some performance indicators, and we've got them presented to us in some ways that are intelligible or make sense. Now here's another one that's a little more a little more exotic, okay, because this is obviously people that operate on a global basis, and they've got some samples for us that show us things like line charts, bar charts, that type of thing. And so this is what you're going to be seeing. Now here's another fairly typical type of thing. This, decent, not that great. Here's another. Now, what you see, and remember, this is a visual presentation of the data that's under it, okay, and how it's been organized. And so you're going to be making decisions based upon what you see. Now, how much you'll see and when you'll see it will be dictated by your position in the company. I'll pop over here, and there's all kinds of, here's some data that is summarized for a hospital. And you'll notice it has bar charts, okay? It has bar graphs. It's got a little speedometer looking kind of thing. It's got a line graph with multicolor, and it's got a data table. I want to show you something for just a moment that might give you some food for thought. And we're going to look at the cockpit. We're going to look at the cockpit of a 777 Boeing. Okay. Now if you look, I think you'll understand why. If you're traveling at 700 knots an hour and you're at 35 or 40 or 50,000 feet, it takes about 4 or 5 of you, okay, to be managing this. This is what the pilot sees when they're flying, and they'll usually have a crew somewhere between 3 and 5 people, and they put all of them in the simulators and they run through all that. But you can only imagine if an emergency occurs and all these systems start feeding in, because these planes fly by wire. That means they have electronics that connect to the wing, the fuselage, etc. And then they have the control mechanisms up here. You can see this could be visually overwhelming, and that's why people who fly, okay, who are pilots, are extremely valuable people because they command all this. Now, here's a nice shot of what they're seeing on a nice, easy flight in the middle. Probably it looks like they're at dusk or dawn, one of the two. But you could see how easily you could get overwhelmed. Okay. Again, and here's another, and this is what they see. So yours is probably not going to be that complex, but just like a pilot, you're going to be called upon to look at data and to make some decisions about it and try to do something with it in terms of company operations and dealing with the external environment. So it's important for you to kind of have a grasp of that and understand we're talking about the building block of all of this, and that is using a database. Now, I'm going to go back over here to the files section, and let's pop this back up here for just a minute. And we've got different types of data that we store and we use, okay? And each of these has an implication for us in terms of how much it costs to store it, how much it costs to use this, how easy or difficult it is to display the data. Now, just for navigational purposes, you'll notice if you can click on the tab, okay, and it will take you up and it will show you a data sheet view, or you can go up here and navigate. It doesn't matter. And we're going to go back over here to the data sheet view, okay, and you'll see we have all these data here, and notice I've got, 25 records, and these all have to be inputted. And in other words, I got to put them in here. So I would have a thing like a form, okay, and that's what we call a form that helps me populate the database. Now, when you and I go out to Amazon, okay, and we choose and we buy an item, we fill out a form, and then that form populates another record for whatever we looked at or what we bought. And Amazon's really nothing more than a database. Okay, let's look over here at this form for a second. We'll open it up, and you're going to see this is It's searchable. I can search. I can do a free text search there. I can go or search it record to record. I can I can put in new blank records. So we use forms typically to populate a table. And as I said, normally the company will have a person who inputs data through the table, but more and more, because people use their credit cards to buy stuff, or they register at your website, whatever, they provide you that data. They fill out the form, and it goes into data in a table that you have to use. Now, this company this is Northampton, and it's one of the cases there in the textbook. And what we have here, if you look, is just basically who are our contacts, okay, and our customers, and when did they last order something, okay, and what's their first name, their last name, what department are they with, and all that business. So this is really this is a list of contacts. Now, the one thing that's kind of out of place here, okay, is the last order. Otherwise, what I would call this is, we would call this a dimension table, because it just talks about these dimensions or variables, okay? Now, this is kind of a hybrid table in terms of what we call a dimension table and a fact table. And you say, what do you mean? Well, we have a set of facts, measures, that is, when did they order last? So we have a date, and we can count how many times they ordered during a particular month. When was the last time they ordered? When was the first time that they ordered? These are facts. Now, this database isn't organized as much in that way, and what you'll find in many times, companies will have kind of a hybrid of the two of these. Okay, now we'll take a look at this next table, and we're not going to save it and change it. And we'll look at the table populated. Okay, and we've got the same stuff, but this time I have a little bit more data in it. Now, and we'll move this over. So you can just move that over. This time we have the last order, okay? And now we move more into what we call a fact table. And we've got all the data, and then we have the last time they ordered. Then we have product groups. So what group did they buy, or type of product? What's their order pattern? Is it increasing? Is it decreasing? Is it stable? And notice I've got little drop-down menus, and I've got that because I have some tables that we call lookup tables that help us input the data by either using a form, or here in the table itself using a drop-down menu. And I'll smudge it out about. Okay. The whole idea on this is to preserve some integrity. If you see how these fit together, these four parts of a table, that's about 90% of everything you need to know. Because really what this boils down to is, do I have the right type of data? Do I have the data that I need to make decisions? And that's why we use the terms a key performance indicator. Am I measuring the right stuff? We know this everywhere, in every company, whatever gets measured gets done, and whatever gets done gets measured. Okay, and so are we doing the right stuff? Okay, and if we're a sales organization, are we making sales? Are we selling stuff that has the best margin, profit margin? Are we running out of stuff? Do we have enough inventory, etc.? And so we add some other things in, like order pattern, okay, or the product group, to let us and do some more analysis, okay, of our operations. And so tables, especially if they're a fact table or kind of a hybrid, will have a combination of key variables or characteristics, attributes about our customers, and it'll have some type of record about transactions. And that transaction may be a communication between us and the customer. It may be a sale, or it may be they return stuff to us. But we want to have keep track of that so we can go in and start to ask some questions like, okay, in the product group G, okay, so what in the world is G? Well, we have, they're grinders, okay. What's the earliest, how long has it been since we placed a grinder? We've sold grinders, okay, and who did we sell it to? Because I want to know that information. And what you're going to find now, when you go out to work, you're going to be working with commercial products that look a whole lot like what we saw when I was showing you some of those dashboards earlier. And depending upon your level in the company, you'll see certain sets of data. Now, what you'll also find is that there will be certain things you'll be asked to do, like we need a report on, the monthly sales. But then there's going to be that occasion where you're going to have your boss or somebody come in and say, what do sales look like? What would sales look like if we dropped the price 10%? Or how much did we sell in a certain city in a certain month? And if you recall, when we did Pacific trading, we got into a lot of that, what we call serendipitous kind of queries. We were taking in Pacific, and we were using that to mimic a database. Okay, so we got our database. Now, an important concept along with it is what we call a data warehouse. You say, what's a data warehouse? A data warehouse is a collection of databases. Okay, and can a table be a database? Can a table be a database? Well, maybe. But if we apply the idea of a warehouse, then we say, okay, any database, we can use it like a warehouse to go and pick information and data, just like if we had a warehouse and we send a robot down to pick an order, or maybe we're not that advanced and we go down to aisle 75 and fill a bunch of stuff on a pallet and bring it up. It doesn't matter. But a key part of this is understanding that what we want to do is link as much stuff together so we can get as clear a picture of the company as possible. And that just kind of gets us gets us started. Now, there are a couple of other things here, and let's look at the two in addition to the table. Let's go ahead and take a look at another key piece of this, and this is the pattern. Okay? And so we're going to come down to this query. It's called Kansas City Clients. Okay? Now, I want to know everybody who's my client in Kansas City. Sounds reasonable because I'm going there, I want to make stops, etc. And I might even want to find out how are we doing. So I could also pop up over here and utilize what we call the design view. Okay, let me walk you through this query. Now I know this. If you've not worked with this, it's kind of like drinking out of a fire hose. That's okay. That's why we're going to do this, and why we'll probably get behind. And that's all right. That's why I tried to bank us as much time as possible when we were working with Excel. Here we got the company, the first name, last name, title, that person, the city, and here we say, okay, we specify Kansas City in terms of the criteria, okay? And we could also, if we wanted to, we could add the last order. And now let's go back up, and we'll run this, and this tells us the last order that was placed by our folks in Kansas City. Now, one of the things that make databases such a powerful tool is this, and I'm going to go back down here to the design level. If I click on this query, I can not only go to the design level, I can go to the SQL, the SQL. Okay? And it's pretty easy. I'm going to take this out and I'm going to copy it into a notepad, and I'm going to show you. Okay. One of the things about this stuff is it's not as complicated as it may appear to be. Okay. This is a pretty typical query, and watch what we're doing here. We're going to select Northampton, case 1. Okay. Table populated, and this says we're going to select from the Northampton table. We're going to get the company. That's the dot first name. So we have the name of the table and the field. And the field is on the right-hand side of the dot. And we're going to select all that stuff. And then the machine is so stupid, I've got to tell it, hey, don't forget, this is the table we're going to get it from. And then we use a conditional statement where the city equals Kansas City. And that's a criterion that we use. Once you do this a few times, you'll go, okay, I see it, I get it. And you say, well, what's the point of showing this to me? Here's the point. All of the data that's in a table, when we run a query today, we always save is this stuff, the code. When we first started databases, we literally, if we ran a query, we literally took space up in the machine, okay? And we had data stored in the machine in addresses, and we had to have a thing called pointers, and then we'd set up space to store the stuff we had. Now, this is all, we just save the code, and this stuff's out on the cloud, okay? And so that's why we can have databases that have hundreds of millions of pieces of data and information. Now, you're going to hear in the news a lot of stuff at times, for example, and I'll close this off for just a sec. You're going to have people squealing and squawking about, metadata. And the government's watching my metadata. Okay, let me show you how this works. When the government comes to a phone provider, they say, hey, we want to see the metadata for everybody in area code 405, okay? And we want to see the metadata for all the calls that went from area code 405 to the country of Yemen. Now, unless they get a court order, they can't get the specific calls, but they can ask for the number. And between 405 and Yemen, there were about 6,000 calls during the month of January. Someone's going to go to a federal judge and say, we need to see those records because we want to see where the calls are going to and who's making the call, who's receiving, etc. But a metadata is just a big chunk that lets us use a category. So people get all worked up about it. It's just really not that big of a deal. And so we've got some metadata here in terms of the company and what company are we dealing with, etc. So we took this query and we worked with it a little bit, okay? We modified it, and it's not that big of a deal. We find out now when was the last time we ordered. So if we go over to see them, okay? Now, depending on the date, if this is 2009, okay, and this is September 15, 2009, and this is October 25th, 2009. I have a decision to make. Am I going to go see these people, okay, or am I going to see these people? How will I order my visit? Well, I at least have the ability to say, should I go see the people who haven't bought for a long time, or should I go see the people who are buying from me right now? Okay, and I have some decisions to make, and then I can start to kind of craft a strategy so that my trip, I can be ready to go in and talk to the people there and say, hey, I haven't ordered anything for a few months, is there a year and a half, whatever, everything going okay, blah blah blah. Okay. So that's just a very practical type of use that we can to which we can put this. Now, I'm going to close this off for just a second. Well, let's look at this other one called Task 5 before we do that. Now, here's a query that we ran. A query is nothing but a question, and I said, okay, I want to get everybody, a list of everybody, my customers, and when they last ordered from me. Okay, and we'll even go down here to the design view to see if we added anything in here, and we didn't. We just said okay. And that's about it. When you go out to work, you'll be working with probably an Oracle product, a SAS, a SAP product, maybe some type of proprietary product, and you'll see that you'll see the representations of tables. You'll see places where you can take and put the data to process it, just like we did with the pivot table back in Excel. And let me say this, okay? One of the things you have to learn is understand, and it's important, is Let a database be a database. Let a spreadsheet be a spreadsheet. Let's say I had a list here of 5,000 clients, okay, or 5,000, and I have 5,000 clients, and I have also some data in here like the amount of the order, etc. I would be stupid if I tried to do a whole lot of mathematic gymnastics with this, because it's just not set up to do this. So what I want to do is take this and dump it out into an Excel sheet and work with it out there. And I can do that if I need to do that. I can import, I can export stuff. So I'm going to collapse. I'll open that ribbon back up, okay, and we'll close that, right, and back there. Now I'm going to close that off, and that's the Kansas City clients, and we won't change anything to the design there. So that kind of gives us a way of looking at, just kind of getting our feet wet, working with a database. I'm going to click on Home here, and I'm going to pin that toolbar so we'll stay where we need to be. Okay. Now, I'm going to close this Northampton database, and I want to come down here and find us, if I can, I think it's Northampton is what I'm looking for. Here it is. When you go in the files, you're going to see a thing called Northampton Northwind 2007. That's the one. My apologies. It's called Northwind. That's a model database from Microsoft. It's called Northwind Traders. So you want to download Northwind 2007 one. Now this will show you a fairly decent kind of database. Now what this has first of all is a form, and this is a form that's designed for me to click on and have certain operations that I want to do. If I want to view the inventory or view the orders or whatever, I can do that, okay? And I log in if I want to see I have any new purchases, okay? And then we have the tables, okay? And we have a customers table, an employee privileges table, employees, all of these, and then we have a thing called order details. Now this little thing, if I want, I can just do something quickly, okay? If I want to see the inventory list. That's all it's designed, to do. And we'll close it, okay? And we'll close that record off. And I'm going to look at the order details, because this is what we call a fact table, okay? And it's saying this is really a list of facts. It's sales, and we have the purchase order number, the inventory ID, and all that stuff, okay? And did we apply a discount, invoiced, allocate, however we handled it. Now we'll go back here for a moment, and we'll look under the design view. We'll look back under the hood, and there it is, okay? Now I want to close this off for just a moment, and we're going to step back from the table, and we're going to take a look at the whole thing, okay? And we're going to click on the database tools, okay? And then click on relationships. You go, holy moly, what's all this? These are what we call entity relationship diagrams, and they show us the flow of information through this company. And I can untangle all this mess, and I can start to see how everything flows, how they're all related. And I will have certain types of tables that relate to each other. And when I see a table, for example, like the purchase order details, notice I've got a lot of incoming, okay? And I've got a lot of tables that feed into it and that it feeds back to. Now I can take my cursor and put it on one of these lines and click Edit Relationship, and it will tell you how the two tables are related. This on the left, purchase orders. There's the field right below it. This is purchase order details, purchase order details, and I have to stretch it out just a hair to get that down there. Yeah, purchase order. And that's going to be from what we call the child table. This enforced referential integrity means every record, when we link these tables, we can only link them because they are matched up with what we call a primary key like this. And then when we embed this primary key in another table, and then it becomes what we call a foreign key, and that lets us link these tables. Now I'm going to go down here and take a look at the join type, and you'll see this includes all the records from the purchase order, okay, and those from the purchase order detail table. This will become second nature to you, and you'll kind of start to see it. But this lets us see, okay, how everything flows. And typically, information is real sticky. Money sticks to it, activity sticks to it, because we keep records of stuff as they occur. That's why I call it sticky. Now I'm going to close this, okay, and we're not going to save that, but I want to let you see all that under there, and we could unsort it. In fact, we could get what we call a report. We'll click on the tools again. We could get a database document or report, excuse me, that will give me, okay, all of the tables, etc., every object, how they're related, their fields, etc. I also have another thing called the object dependencies, and I'm going to come down here to this very first query. It's called customers extended, okay, and I'm going to come up here and I'm click on the object dependencies, and you say, what's the point? The point is this. This tells me the objects that depend upon me. In other words, what's downstream from this query? What does this query feed? Then I can choose objects that I depend on. This query, what comes into it, okay? And so when we talk about information flows, it's the same as water. Water flows, gets into a container, and then it moves on, and it's the same way with information, okay? And this just helps me kind of have an idea of what feeds this thing, or what data go into it, and where it goes to. Let's look at the customers extended query for just a sec, okay? And here we have a full-blown, pretty decent query. Now, you'll notice something. We don't have any email addresses. This is the kind of thing that will drive a database administrator crazy, and will make you crazy. Do they have web pages? Are there any notes? We don't have that. Now, granted, this is their home number, their mobile phone. Granted, this is an example. However, if you have something like this, you have junk. It's no good. Anytime you have a table that's got a whole bunch of data, you don't know if it's null data, okay, or it's missing data, or it's a zero. And if you have that ambiguity, then you've got a problem. So the first rule of all of this is, if you're going to collect it, use it, okay? It's kind of like when I was growing up at home, my mother was an old Iowa farm girl, and she said, you know, at dinner time, you take that plate, you fill it, you eat it. You don't waste anything. It's the same thing, because it costs money to store this stuff, to input it, to store it, to keep it, to move it across your trunk line, or whatever internet access you're using, or if you've got it feeding into a larger database, etc. Okay? There's really no big magic about this. Again, it's collecting the right data, okay, and asking the right questions, and getting that into an intelligible form that a decision maker can use. It just becomes a question of the scale and the complexity with which you work, and how fast you have to have stuff. So we'll close this off here, and you can see we've got the employees extended. This is another one. We have all this data about our employees, but we don't have their mobile phones. We got their own numbers, but we don't have mobile numbers. We got a fax number. So there's stuff here that's missing, okay? And in the real world, this definitely would have to be filled out. We'd want to have this, but we wouldn't have it unless we ensure that everything's required. Now, if you look, first of all, look at the ID, and this is called the primary key, and you see the little key, and this is used to make this record unique. When I make the records in a table unique, it enables me to match it with another table. How? I take this field, and I put it into another table, and then I match them. And you say, so I could string together 10,000 tables. Google does it all the time. Amazon does it all the time. And that way, when I link those tables up, I can start to get a clear picture of a transaction or product performance or whatever I've been collecting data about, okay? Now, I understand that it can kind of give you a little bit of a feeling saying, you know, all this data stuff, I want to be in business, okay? I'm not a robot. I'm not a geek. I'm going to care about it, okay? But we got to have some of these skills, and we have to have a good way, and we have to think about them and think at that level. I'm going to give you a good example. Right now, everybody's all upset about what's going on down in Puerto Rico, okay? They're not, and the people in Puerto Rico are screaming, we don't have any stuff. We don't have any stuff. We don't have stuff. There's a reason. The ports in Puerto Rico are designed for cruise ships, not for Navy destroyers. They're not designed to take huge offloads of equipment. They're not designed for that, and they're torn up on top of it. So you have what we call the last mile problem. All this stuff sitting here, and we can't get it out there. Now, why it hasn't occurred to somebody to get as many C-347 cargo planes as you got and just start dumping stuff out on around the country, in other words, doing airlift, is beyond my comprehension. But that's because the people who are putting those things together are trying to handle things in a very orderly fashion, but you've got chaos on the ground. And if you do, that means you've got to be a little more sporadic and take a different approach. And there'll be months getting those ports up ready up to receive ships. There's some stuff getting through, but they're just not designed for that, and people don't understand that. And if you've got roads with bridges washed out and all that stuff, the only way you get to those people is through the air. And someone somewhere is not thinking clearly about how we do this, okay? And so it's great that they clear the roads, they're getting the power restored and all that. Doesn't do you a lot of good if people starve to death or gotten infectious diseases while they've been waiting for you to get the power. At that point, the power is kind of irrelevant. So it's just a process of thinking logically. And this is, again, the same thing of, okay, I've got this information, I got this table here. Do I have the kind of data that I want, that I can need, that I can use it to make a decision? And if I walk through here, you'll see this ID is required because it's an auto number. It goes with each new record. Let's click on company. Is that required? Well, it's indexed, and that's the way that we require it. And we index stuff simply because when we index it, it lets the computer do a faster search of the database. You go, big deal. Well, it is a big deal if you got 50 million pieces of data to search through. And as you scroll on down, you'll see the same thing here. So this is a process of how I get the data that I want as fast as I want into a format or into a place where I can format in a way that it makes some sense. Now, over there on page 133 in the textbook, and you can read a lot faster and you can spend some time to kind of think about it, all right? You'll see as they talk about how those are put together, the view that you get, etc., okay? And using Windows and Access really hasn't changed too much at all. A key thing is over on page 136 where they show you the components of a database. Now, we use Microsoft Access because it gives you all the features of what you'll be using at work. In addition, it does this. It allows you to go behind the scenes and work in what we call the back office environment to work where a database administrator is at. Then as we work through these cases and you see some of the difficulties that we have in dealing with some data or pulling out or formatting it, you'll be able to have a better and more intelligent conversation with those people as you progress through your career. So Northwind Traders, it's a sales organization, and we could look at their inventory. We'll open that up. Okay. This is an inventory, and this is a true fact table, and it shows us what we purchased, what was sold, what's on hand, okay, what's available, how much we've got in order, do we have any back orders, etc. There's whole lots of information here that I'm going to extract from this database, and this is a lot like working with this stuff is really extracting information out of all the data that's there. And so I've got this table with all these records and all these columns, and usually what will happen is when we run a query, we reduce that down to get what we need. It's not any different than if you're out mining for gold and you have to get rid of all the impurities, or if you go out and you pull up petroleum up out of the earth and then you got to refine it. It's the same story here. But this is kind of the starting point where we've got all this stuff in here. And then we can start to say, okay, what information do I need? And there's what key performance indicators do I need? And are there going to be those kind of serendipitous or kind of half crazy questions that I'm interested in getting some data for? Okay. Now, right now, you know more than 95% of the people out in the business world about databases, and you understand 99% more because they don't see it, they don't get it. A database not only is a way for me to manipulate and handle data, databases also become a business model. You say, what do you mean? Well, let me show you a database. Let's go over and see our friends at Amazon. Okay? Now, I'm going to do a search for Amazon. All right. This is a database. It opens up and it shows us a form. And it's showing me stuff to sell. These first items up here, this is high margin stuff. And then they've got some other things to explore and take a look at. Here's some more stuff, movies. And this is all put up here. These images, okay, really will run a query and go back and give us a table, two tables, one for the product that we've chosen, and a table that starts to store who is this person, or what's their IP, what time of day did they come here, etc. And I guarantee you the next time I come back with this IP, it'll start to feed me some of the same stuff. And if I take the bait, okay, like Dove Deals and Beauty, I may be seeing stuff in my email or around I may be seeing banner ads for the next 10 years about beauty coupons. Okay, it's a database. That's essentially what it is. Now, behind it, okay, is also a logistics system. In other words, if I sell this junk, I got to get it to people, and that's why I have to use a logistics system to get that done. Now, I want to move this over just a second here so I can get us back to the files. And we've got the Northwind Traders open, okay? And then you can see this is a very big company, okay? But we've got a lot of queries, and then we have all these forms, okay? This is a way for me to input data. Now, when we're over to Amazon, that's a form too. It's just simply some pretty pictures. I can click, it'll take, and what Amazon does is it uses what it calls a recommendation engine. And that is you come in, you order, let's say, here's an example, you order a hamburger. And you want some fries with that? Oh yeah, I want some fries. How about a drink? What do you want to drink? A drink. Anything else? Oh, I think I might like it. That's how they sell. And their machine and their web service is designed to walk you through that process. Okay, and then store all of that and have those algorithms. And you notice when we were over there, they said, "Would you like to sign in?" Which can be the kiss of death if if you're somebody that shops on Amazon or you're one of those people that says, okay, I got to buy something from them every week or whatever. And I'm sure there's people out there like that. Or if you want them to know your preferences. Now, I want to take a look at another critter over here, and that's a report, okay? And here's a customer address book, okay? Now, working with the report function in Access is a booger. And I would say it's not for the faint of heart. I hate it. I don't like it. So when I get data, I usually take it and dump it into Word and play around with it. It's just there are great limits. You can spend a lot of time, and we'll see that as we get into some of these cases that we work with. Now I want to show you another database. Okay, I might have shown you this before, but I'll show it to you again so you can you start to see this. And we're going to go over to Esri Tapestry. Okay, this is Esri, and this is the zip code lookup. I think I might have showed you guys this before. Okay, now right now, here's what I have. I have a database, and I have one kind of, I have a form here, and I can start to run some queries. And the first thing it says is, look, here's a map, dummy. Okay, try putting in a zip code. Okay, let's put in a zip code. And I'm going to put in 74804. Okay, and it's going to call up 74804. And it is going to show me where it's at. Okay, so I get a feeling of the county. And notice I still have a little bit of this. If you look there on your screen, you'll see it still has just a very faint superimposition, and you can still see a little bit of I-40 there. Okay, but the main event at this level is, who are these people? What are they like? What kind of lifestyle do they have? What are their preferences in general? And they have one called Old and Newcomers. And then Salt of the Earth, single family, married couples. So it's about their housing. Midlife constants. It's a pretty stable group of people here. Then, if I'm interested, I can get data on their income. Am I interested in their income? Absolutely. The higher their income, the more stuff they can buy, the more stuff they can afford on credit. And so I've got that data. And the nice thing is that instead of giving me a table, it gives me, oh, here on the left, it gives me a nice little bar chart, but it does something more important. It depicts this data graphically by showing me a thermal. And you've heard me when we were working through Excel, we're using a thermal. Human beings respond to that. We respond to thermals. There's a reason. Our eyes are designed to look at light patterns along a continuum. And so we see shades of things, okay? And when you look at the weather, you see the same thing. And here, the darker the green, the higher they make, okay? And I see if I can maneuver this thing around. If I can move it, no, I can't, won't let me. But you could see over here, here's Oklahoma City, and there's the median income there. That's the middle income. And come over here, here's the median income over here. And the biggest city, McLeod, the biggest city, Shawnee. This is gold. Doesn't cost you a dime. Now, you can also get data on the age. We're working with a database, except it's showing us from a spatial or a map-oriented type of view, okay? And then we can look at population density. Now, this is just kind of the baby of this. It's a free version you can use, although it's just fantastic because you look at this thing now, if you buy the product for real, it's extremely expensive. And because what these folks have done is they have developed an algorithm that mimics the United States Census, and they run it every year. So they have the best, most extensive data set on people, their habits, what they buy, etc. Nobody has anything any better than them. And that's why they're so expensive, is because they have that type of data. But this is a database for all intents and purposes. Watch what's going to happen. Now, here instead of running a query, I'm going to filter the data. So you want to filter? That sounds familiar. I filter data. Yeah, I'm going to filter. I'll filter it some more. So what's the point here? Well, I can see context. I can start to see what's around us. I'm filtering the data out. I'm filtering it from a spatial perspective, and I can keep going back away from it to see where it fits in the state. Okay. We haven't even begun to see what all we can do with these kinds of tools. But if I know, okay, where this place sits, and if I were to ask you, does Shawnee sit in the middle of a whole bunch of highways? Oh, does it ever? Now, here's on my old stomping grounds over here, Cape Girardeau, Missouri, right down there in the Boot Heel. There's that Boot Heel in Missouri, as they say. I learned it. I moved up there. I was teaching at the school there, Southeast Missouri State, and I'd say Missouri. And after about a week, people said it's Missouri down here. So I learned to say Missouri. And my wife, who's from St. Louis, says, "Oh no, it's Missouri." So we don't even have that argument. But here's Cape. And it's kind of a long. Cape Girardeau was a river city. If you look, you see the streams, see the rivers, the confluence. Now you got folks built along highways. Now I'm going to do a little more filtering. I'm going to bug in on this jewel and closer and closer and closer. Now I'm going to show you something. I might have showed you this the other day. I didn't know. Maybe I did, maybe I didn't. I got my machine clicked up here. I'm going to show you something. And that's me. And I'm going to put in my phone. Now, this will give me all my messages and this stuff. And I'm going to click on Google Maps. Okay. And this is going to show me my places. It's going to show me my timeline. And if I've left my GPS on, it will show me where I've been today. The other places I've been to. It will show me the route, etc. Okay. There's my trek. My phone has a global positioning built inside of it. So the phone company, when you sign your contract, says we have the right to take all your data and sell it. So they have all of this stuff on me for all the years I've been with Sprint. It's buried, and they've got all kinds of they can pull these data up and track it and see what my travels have been, or if you're interested in that, or if you're trying to get an idea of maybe a location analysis. Okay, so a database can be used in a whole lot of different ways. Okay, in a whole series, and you can imagine all the data that we can pull from that. I'll put the timeline there. There's my Google Maps. I'll sign out of that. I'll sign out of there. And we got the zip codes. And so, again, you can see the databases are more than just simply a table. They are used, the whole concept, they're used in a lot of different ways. And so seeing them and understanding that is important. I mentioned this today when I was with the data administration class. And here's something very interesting. the there's a there's a channel called Turner Classic Movies, and they just carry classic movies. The very first movie they ever showed was Gone with the Wind, which is one of the most famous movies in the world. When they showed that movie on cable for the first time, it had more viewers than it had had in the entire time it had run since it had been made and was shown anywhere, all in one viewing. And what happened was Turner Classic Movies, Ted Turner, who used to own the Atlanta Braves, he bought all those old movies. He saw a database. And so his network, that the Turner Classic Movies, they've got stuff that you can see live. They've got movies you can see on demand. You can buy books about the movies, all that stuff. And they handle it like a database. They have discussion boards that they can call and scrape data from, etc. So I can't even impress on you how important this is, and what these and how important these tools are for us. Now, the key thing about a database, in addition to being able to pull up this stuff, is to ask the right questions. Okay? Now, I want to show you another site that I work with that I really, really like them. My Gmail. It's the Association I think it's called Religious Data Archives. I'm probably misspelling it terribly. Maybe they'll be nice and take me there. Here it is. Now, I do not a terrible amount, but quite a bit of work with churches who have databases and trying to help them work through that process. I'll give you an example. One place I was working with had a form for new visitors. The form for new visitors had, I think it was 47 pieces of information that they wanted that visitor to fill out. And I said to them, if somebody's visiting you, I don't think they're going to stay, because it took me 25 minutes to fill all this junk out. Get the data you need to do what? Go see them that day. It was interesting when we first moved here. I grew up over in Del City, at First Church, Del City. And I went over there, when we first moved back, I went over there and I filled a visitor card. And I timed it to see how soon would it be before somebody came to see me. The church I attend now, I was up until last year, I was an official moron. I lived in Moore. Now I am an honorary moron, even though I don't live there anymore. But at First Church Moore, same thing, to see who'd get there. And a couple of other unnamed churches. I just wanted to see how nimble are these people? How interested are they in getting a new member? And one church was there that afternoon. Another took 3 weeks to get to me, and another took a week. Which one would I be more likely to join? Which one would I feel like? And not only did they come and see me that afternoon, I had given them some information, and they brought relevant materials for me of like, well, here's our website. Here's some life groups that probably might appeal to you. Here's some more literature about our church. And I'm sitting here going, pretty good. I want to show you something. A lot of times, churches will ask me to help them do a growth study. And I like to use the GIS map, okay? And I'm going to put in the zip code. This is one. And my wife works up at First Church Moore. That's where we go to church. So I'm a proud moron. And it's more, our church is located off of 35 and Northwest 27th in Moore. And when I went in and was with the pastors in a staff meeting, and I showed them this, and they were shocked. This is I didn't know there was that many churches. In Oklahoma, there's a church on every corner. And you'll notice something. Churches are retail outlets. If you don't believe me, look at where they're placed. They're all placed along what? Major highways. Okay? And notice over here, I said this, and this shows you that idea of a database, the layers as we start to connect data. Now, I can, if I want to, I can enter a radius, and this is 2 miles. I can say, what's around us in 4 miles, okay? And I'll see what that looks like. I get the profile, the 4 miles. It should do that. Click on the map, okay? Oh, I need to click. I need to choose my place here, and let's see, and it'll give me a little circumference. This is a database, okay? And this allows me to see who are my real competitors. We know this, for example, the average person or family will drive 12 minutes to go to church, and then it drops. 18 minutes is about a maximum. 12 minutes. So, and they said, and one of the staff members said, I don't believe you. I said, get me all the data of your visitors and your members for the past 15 years. And they pulled the and I pulled the data and began to map it. And sure enough, and you can do Google Drive time. Some of you probably use it, and they start going, whoa, 11 minutes, 10 minutes, 12 minutes, a few 13 minutes, but a lot of 10 minutes, a lot of 11 minutes, because people will only drive a certain distance. Right? So they began to say, okay, where does this take us in terms of the future? And it allowed me then to go back to like Esri Tapestry and overlay. Well, here's the population, here's the density, here's their age, here's their income, and where we're located will be radically different from what it was 10 years ago, and it will be radically different in a few years. So databases have a lot of uses, okay? Now, I've traveled on quite a long time here, but I know that these are important. And back in 2013, when we had the tornado that hit Moore, our church was kind of the triage. If you drive by, you'll see our church. It's the great big church there at North 27th and 35, when we're on the east side of the road in the big building. It's like a warehouse. And we became a triage station. And so it began a process of, first people on the scene with Baptist General Convention. Boom. Within an hour, they were serving people hot meals and all that stuff. Then the insurance companies, FEMA, etc. So we started building a database because we started getting people calling from all over the country. And we did something called, I've got a load of 1,000 pairs of shoes. I'll be there in 2 days. And you got to plan for that because it's incoming. And so finally, in desperation, I called the people at Walmart and I said, this is like about 11:30, 12 o'clock that night. And I said, I need some help. And fortunately, they said, here's the stuff. And they began to give us a list. Here's what people need day one and what they'll want. Day 2, day 3, day 4. I said, how do you know that? I said, because we have a database that we've gone through these before, and we know what people buy and what they order and what they want. So we began to set up the bottom floor of our church, just like kind of like a little factory, and people come by. And the first day, people wanted heavy boots, flashlights, energy food, saws or chainsaws, because they're digging out. By the second week, and one of the nice things, one of the really fun things is, well, it's kind of fun. It says fun is not the right word. Things that I enjoyed was we started getting calls from people all over the country, some foreign calls saying, my Aunt Betty lived on 13th. I haven't heard from her. And so we go out now, just so you can understand something. When we go out, especially the neighborhoods in the west part of the city towards 44, there was nothing. No visible landmarks. Everything was crushed. And the only way we could find houses, so we'd have to input the address and get the GPS. And that's the only way they can find people right now in some of these places have been ravaged by hurricanes, because all of the markers are gone. You can't see them. So these play a tremendously important role, not just in selling people stuff, but in doing good things in terms of helping people recover, because they're going to have to be able to find people. And if we didn't have, thank God we got GPS, because otherwise you're just kind of rooting around out there trying to find folks. And and that's why people like CNN are out there, and they'll go, what address, where'd you live, and we're so and so and so and so, and they get the coordinates, they can go find them. Well, enough of that. And we looked at the file. We've got the north winds. Okay. Now I want to keep us on track here, because we've been going here close to an hour and 15 minutes, so we're kind of coming up to the point where we'll want to kind of wrap it for the night, and then I'll do a bit of a follow-up. Let's look at the syllabus for just a minute. Okay, what we've got going on. Okay, and we'll scroll down here, and let's see. For October 5th, you've got these 2 chapters. Okay, and the quizzes for them, they're due by 6. Now, as you notice, as we start to come on down here, you'll start to see upload ACC, Access Database 1, Case 2, Case 3, Case 4. And what I'll do tomorrow or Saturday is we'll take a look at case number 1, and I'll do a recording of it, okay, to kind of follow up on tonight. And we'll do this. Now, we've already uploaded Pacific Trading. Now, if you want to work a little bit on your own, which is fine, okay? We'll go back over to the files for just a second, and I'll show you the files for these cases. And we're going to come down here, and you'll see it's going to be the Solvit files. And now these are the student files, okay? And we'll download that for just a second. No, I think did I open the solution files? Yeah, I'll show you this. Yeah, I don't have, I have those hidden off. Here's the student files that are published. And you'll see all those access cases. Now, if you scroll down, you'll see this thing called Solvit, okay, Chapter 5. That is our data warehouse where we're going to work through our cases. I'll diminish this down for a sec, and I'm going to throw this out on the lawn, and I'm going to open it up, and we'll enable it. And these are the tables, and I think there's maybe, let's look at all the objects that are there. We've got, let's see, we have all, these are the tables that we'll be using for each of the cases. And you'll see they say like case 7, case 6, case 8, etc. So we're going to work from that warehouse perspective where we've got all these tables, and for each of these cases we'll be pulling some stuff up and working with them. And so what I'll do tomorrow or Saturday is I'll post another video, okay, and a screencast, excuse me, where we take a look at that first case and we talk about it. And I'll also kind of cover some more about databases and how they're put together and so forth. And a lot of that will come, and it will come pretty easy, because a lot of this is just common sense, to be honest with you. There's no great magic in it. What's really made everything in these such incredibly great tools are 2 things, really 3. One, the ability to do high-speed computations. Number 2, the amount of storage we've got on the cloud. Tremendous amount of storage out there. And then number 3, the kinds of tools we have to get all that stuff organized, to query it, to mine it, to pull it, to extract data out of it. Okay, and so it's yeah, so it's pretty. It is understanding what they can do for you is most important. And here's what a database really does for you. It forces you to ask yourself, what information do I need? Okay? When do I need it and how do I need it? What format? Because that will make you go back and ask yourself, why are we in business? What is it that we do that matters to people? Why do we get paid? And so a database becomes an expression of that. Okay? It truly becomes an expression of that. And again, you know, it's a tool. And once you get a comfort level of working with it, and that'll be pretty fast. What's going to happen is this, and you don't believe me now, but it will happen. You'll go out for a job interview, and your employer's going to say, "Do you have much experience with the database?" And you say, "Yeah, I've worked with Access, and by the time we're through with you, yeah, I've done a little bit of structured query language, a little bit, you know. Yeah, I understand how Oracle works, and I've worked with SAS SAS visual tools." So, and that prospective employer is going to go, "You're gold," because everybody can spreadsheet, but few of them grasp and see this tool for what it is and what we can do with it. And all the spreadsheets in the world are useless if the data that we flow into them is junk. And it's here in a database where we take raw data and we turn it into information, and information is data that I can use for decision making. That's why all of these are what I call decision centric. They're designed to help me make a decision. And so we'll see that as we unfold, as we work through these cases. And I'll do that tomorrow. We'll start with case one and we'll kind of walk through it, and you'll see exactly what I'm talking about. And again, you know, I'm pumped about it for two reasons. First of all, it's a fantastic tool. And I've been along for the ride with this thing when we used to have to write code for all this stuff. And so when I look at something like this, I think you have no idea how good you have it. Number two is I can do a lot of good with this. If my company can get stuff to people the right time and the right way, if we can get an order filled properly, we can serve them a meal that brings some joy to their family gathering. If we have a database that will help us identify people who have a heart who are on a list who might need an artificial heart. If we can find a way, if we have a database that will help tell us, okay, where are the best triage stations in Puerto Rico? Where would that be? The highest ground. Okay, why? Because it has minimal amount of moisture, minimal amount of water, and you can get to it. Okay, on and on and on. That is why the good Lord gave us business entities, and why He gives us these tools so we can make people's lives better. And hopefully, when you go out, when you walk, next time you go to Walmart, walk around and ask yourself, how did this stuff get here? How did it get here? When you go to your favorite fast food place, and I know some of you are fast food junkies, although I know your athletes, your coaches, and everybody try to tell you to eat right. I know you go out and sneak, you slurp down some burgers or tacos or whatever. I get that. Ask yourself, how is it that in this 800 square feet they did $6 million of business last month? How did that happen? How did they get this stuff to us? How does it happen? And you'll see these are the types of tools that make our lives so much better. So I want to encourage you, think about this, and as you walk out and you go to one of these companies and you sit down and you ask yourself, how do they use a database to make their product service bundle better? How do they serve people better? Well, they know what their customers want. They know how to get it. They can get orders done. All of that is an execution. And databases are really a very powerful tool, because they're the foundation of everything that we use to build a dashboard so we can see. Now, I'm a baseball freak. Okay, I love baseball. Okay. And I'll tell you how much I love baseball is I'm teaching this class tonight while the Yankees are playing the Indians. That's how much I love, that's how much I am committed to this, because trust me, I'd have a hologram up here if I could, but I can't. But a database lets me really focus on what information do I need, how do I need it, in what form. When I do that, I'm driving my car, I'm flying in the right direction. And you remember when we took a look at that 777, that cockpit, that's baby stuff compared to trying to run a business of any particular size. Well, folks, thank you for the time. Appreciate it. And I'm going to stop the share and stop the recording, and then I'll post another video for you guys either Friday or Saturday. Thank you so much. Now, well, I'll start on case number 1, and we'll go through there. And let me stop for a minute and see. I've got Allison, I've got Carmen, I've got Emily, Frankie, Houston, Hunter, and Tyler. And I'm going to unmute all of you for a minute. Anybody have a question? See if anybody awake? Anybody there?
Yeah.
No?
Yeah.
Yeah. Who's talking to me? Who's talking to me?
Tyler.
Okay. Good. Any questions, Tyler? Allison, you got any questions?
No, I'm good.
Okay.
No.
Okay. Emily, any questions? Frankie? Hunter, any questions? Tyler, any questions?
No, I'm good.
Okay. Folks, thank you much. Have a good one. Enjoyed it. And I'll post that video. All right. Thank you for being here tonight, folks. Appreciate it.